How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Friday here on this program, you know what that means? We got a lot to talk about here today, including this coming Sunday, NXT 2.0 War Games. And I have just learned, breaking news here, that Lance Storm will, in fact, be replacing Vinny on Sunday to cover this show. So he has to watch NXT 2.0 War Games, and then it'll be myself and Lance and Craig all recapping the show afterwards, only for our top-tier subscribers here on Twitch and YouTube. You have to be a subscriber to the video services to watch it live after the show goes off the air. But we have the lineup for the show here today. We can tell you about that. Obviously, Rampage and SmackDown tonight. We've got notes on the top salaries in WWE, which was written about in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter. Who's making $5 million a year to headline WWE shows? We'll talk about the Dynamite numbers. Not great numbers. Last week, the Dynamite numbers were better than I expected. This week, the Dynamite numbers worse than I expected. So we'll tell you about those here. We've also got an update on Clark Connors, who tested positive for COVID. He was expected to be at ComicCon this coming weekend. And he will not be there, but we'll tell you about that. And WWE postponing a tour of Canada, and pretty much whatever else is on your mind. We were scheduled today to be joined by Jervis Cottonbelly, but unfortunately, after booking the show, he was unable to make it here today. So we're going to schedule him for next week. We got a lot of big guests coming up. Jervis, Danhausen, who will be on the show Tuesday, alongside Oreo the Orca. My God, so much coming up. And we'll talk about all of that and more after the break. 425-780-7566. If you'd like to send a text message, that is 425-780-7566. Mike Sempervive will join us after the break. And we will be back in just a moment. Stick around, everybody. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. All we do is just get constant breaking news and information here on this program. So, as we went on the air, I learned that Lance will be stepping in for Vinny this coming Sunday for the War Games show. We can talk about that lineup here in a second, although it just completely vanished off my notes, but I'll figure it out. So there's that, and then also we just learned that Jervis Cottonbelly will not be able to do the show here today, but we learned during the break that he will be replaced today on this show. I hear that you're leaving early, Mike. Is that right?
I am. I'm skipping out of here early today, boss. I've had enough of this week.
Well, you know what you're missing? Our interview with Gabriel Kidd.
Oh!
Yep, too bad, buddy. He's going to be on the show coming up in the final segment of the show, talking New Japan and plenty of other things as well. So if you got questions, you can text or email them to me, and we're going to talk to him about lots of different things. That's coming up later on in the show. In this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer reported WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns and former champion Brock Lesnar are currently the heads of the company table when it comes to annual contract value. Meltzer reported both men make more than $5 million a year, which we knew about Brock Lesnar. We knew that Brock was making in excess of $5 million a year, but Roman Reigns also up there, $5 million per year, guaranteed deals. Another unnamed talent is around $4 million, and he added, quote, a lot of the top talent is now at $2 million and some at $3 million. If you recall, it's this is just the way life works. So when AEW was kicking off, WWE went on this big deal where they started offering to pay everybody double. And there were a lot of people that were making around $1 million downside. And so the top talent ended up making, as noted here, one person at 4, a lot of top talent at 2, some of them are at 3. It's probably not hard to figure out who these individuals likely are. I mean, just look at the show find out who never does jobs is always protected. I don't know. Let me make this clear. I don't know that the person who is making $4 million is Randy Orton. But if I found out that the guy that was making $4 million is Randy Orton, I would not be the least bit surprised. Your $2 and $3 million, I mean, watch the show. It's your Charlotte Flairs and, you know, the folks that are getting main event pushes regularly, always there in the your Becky Lynch, for example. I mean, they're making plenty of money. But the problem here is that they started offering these deals to more than just the tippy top talent. So essentially, if you were a great example would be, you know what I'm talking about? Anyway, the point is, if you were lower on the totem pole, you were also suddenly making twice as much money as you were making before. And the problem is when AEW ends up doing fine and you're not putting them out of business and there's no chance of putting them out of business and you're paying all of these lower tier guys double what they were making, and not just guys but women as well, well, then all of a sudden, you know, the story of the year is they've cut 85 talents or whatever the number is. So it was as usual, and it's not the talent's fault because, you know, they're not going to offer you, hey, you were making, $250, now we're going to pay you $5, take it or leave it. Well, I'm taking it. Well, now all of a sudden you're making $500,000, and they're looking at their little budget right here, and, oh, I'm sorry, you got to go. We ain't paying you $500,000. And we haven't seen any yet, but, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're individuals that got cut and they end up coming back for less than they were making. I mean, it's inevitable that's going to happen with some of them at some point. But anyway, that's the story. So as usual, life's not fair. If you're a Randy Orton, they're going to double your contract. You're making a preposterous amount of money compared to, you know, what you used to be making. But they ain't cutting you because they don't want you to go to AEW. If you're a whoever, you know, they're not worried. I mean, I don't know what the whole situation was with Nia Jax, but she was clearly making more than they wanted to pay her. And so they weren't concerned about her going to NXT. And so she ended up getting cut along with 85 other people over the last year. So that's life in WWE, and doesn't really trickle down. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, no, trickle-down economics is has always been bad proposition for most of us who are waiting on that money to come trickling down. But happy for the people at the top of the food chain, that's for sure. Happy for the people that did make out because of AEW. And, I mean, Randy Orton, Becky, Charlotte, Reigns, Lesnar, you know, whoever else is up there, awesome. That's awesome. We've seen the cuts happen where they have buyer's remorse. Good Brothers, the greatest example of that. I think one of the more high-profile examples of that. You talked about
there was another one. They had $750,000 was their new deals, and then all of a sudden they realized we're paying these guys $750,000. They cut them.
Well, and think about that too. And this is not. And I love, you know, Carl Anderson goes back a long way. I'm cool with that, but like $750,000 a year. You know, they were losing their minds. Drake Maverick left, came back. He's kind of got a weird situation because I don't know, you know, with his NXT contract and all that sort of stuff, you know, did he come back for less? I bet you he probably would if they offered him less. You know, I don't know. I don't know what you can really say other than they're going to only take care of a certain group because they only look at a certain group as being valuable, and where they have made mistakes are, sure, you've let Bray Wyatt go and he hasn't made an impact yet. Sure, you let Braun Strowman go and he hasn't gone anywhere yet, but it's not going to be those guys who hurt you. You know, Daniel Bryan left in a different way. He wanted different challenges, but it won't be those guys. It's going to be the other people. And I don't want to say the 2.0s, but like you see where they're at with just a little bit of effort. I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't think they'll ever get to a level of an FTR, but oh yeah, FTR. You know, that they're going to die by people like that leaving because they don't want wrestlers with experience. They don't want certain things that AEW absolutely puts a value on. So that's where they're really going to hurt from some of this stuff. And there are going to be people that go back to WWE because they can't go anywhere else. And I don't want to say that, like Nia Jax, for example, and I said this about Braun Strowman, I can see him. Yeah, he can be an Impact. He can be in some other places, but like, because of his skill set, because of, his dexterity or lack thereof as he continues to get older, it's like in some ways WWE is the best spot for him. So even if he does take a little bit of a pay cut, it still may be the best bet for him, for a guy like him. And I think that's the same way with Nia Jax. But again, they're going to pay people what they want to pay them. Are people still criminally underpaid in that company? Absolutely, for the amount of money they bring in. But this is how it goes. Again, in my mind, their mistake of not seeing value right now in a certain type of performer, which tends to be the experienced independent wrestling fan, and the wrestling fan, they don't want those guys. They're not putting a value on that. That's where they're really going to hurt. And at some point, those people are going to make money again in WWE because they're going to have to, because, next in line, well, we'll see how that works out.
Wednesday's Dynamite, 861,000 viewers, down 4.1% from Thanksgiving Eve. Lowest audience for Dynamite on a Wednesday since May 19, 18 to 49. Third on cable, 0.31, which was the lowest demo since May 19. Demo categories, all of that information here. Fact of the matter is this, not a great number in terms of viewership. Last week, I was expecting them to do around 861, and instead, they did significantly better than that for the first time ever on Thanksgiving Eve. This week, I thought there's no chance that the show isn't up from last week, but in fact, it was down. Now, I know the sky's falling as always, but it's not. They were third on cable, so that's good. But that is a lower number than expected. Back in a moment with more Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also WrestlingObserver.com. A couple of things if you head to my Twitter, at Bryan Alvarez. At the top there, stickied, is the link to our final Whale Scout co-host auction. And once this one is done, they are done for the year. And it ends tomorrow, so if you have any interest whatsoever in participating, then now is a chance to check that out. Top of my Twitter, at Bryan Alvarez. Put in your bid. A winning bid gets to co-host with myself, Vinny, Craig, Granny, whatever Bryan and Vinny show you want. And if within reason, I will let you review the show that you want as well.
How much for Granny to put on the Orca outfit?
Not allowed. Dude, we'd never get her out of it. Disgusting.
That could be the entire Christmas special, actually, would be trying to get her in and out of the Oreo outfit, which would be... I mean, you can't say that it wouldn't be hilarious.
It would be horrible. You're a horrible person.
That's not true.
Why don't you do the Craig line the other day when he talked about the next time Granny falls down? Poor attempt at comedy, Craig. It was disgusting. I'd also like to note, speaking of hospitals, that Lance here tweeted, no show today with myself. Wife had emergency surgery Sunday, just got home from the hospital a few hours ago. He's watched no wrestling, will not have the free time today. She is home and recovering. So obviously best wishes to Lance and his wife. And he will be taking the day off today, but we'll be back Sunday for War Games. Can you imagine?
Oh boy. I'm going to watch War Games. I promise you I will watch War Games. And I hate to say that with some of the experience level in this match, I am very much looking forward to how it's laid out, what some of these folks do in this match, what some of the big spots are. It's going to be interesting, I think. I wonder, again, they have made the bar pretty high for War Games, and I know everything is out the window now with the new regime. Nothing that happened before matters, and we've heard those stories about, but Vince watched the show and he really liked all that nonsense, whatever. It could be a completely different layout and scenario and all that sort of stuff tonight, but the bar has been raised pretty high for War Games there as far as spots and as far as, what they do in those matches. So it is interesting to me. It's a very intriguing lineup here for the very first takeover of the 2.0 era.
This person says, you're going to make poor Lance watch the NXT 2.0 pay-per-view after the week he's had. Hold on a minute. I made an offer to Lance. Lance is the one that said that he would do it, and Lance is getting paid. So no one's being forced to watch this show against their will. Except maybe Mike. So we got Raquel Io, Cora Jade, Kaylee Ray against Dakota Kai Toxic Attraction. That's Mandy, Gigi, and JC Jane. So these War Games are 4-on-4 matches this year. And the babyfaces have the advantage in the women's match. That should be really exciting. And the last time that we had a match that was a stunt match with green workers, it was a few weeks ago. There was a ladder match or something like that, and I was petrified that someone was going to get killed. And someone actually did get badly injured, but it was Zoe Stark, who I was not expecting to be one of the people that got injured. So we're back to doing some War Games match, and somebody's, I'm sure, going to have to come off the top of that cage, and there's going to be gimmicks and weapons, so I just say a prayer before that particular match. Cameron Grimes, Duke Hudson is hair versus hair.
I'm sorry.
We got Imperium versus Kyle O'Reilly and Von Wagner. That'll be for the tag team titles. Joe Gacy faces Roderick Strong. And then we've got the old versus new, although they're calling it Team Black and Gold versus Team 2.0. But it's the Millionaires Club versus the New Blood. Ciampa, Gargano, Pete Dunne, and LA Knight against Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Grayson Waller, and Tony D'Angelo. And we'll see what happens
to some
here.
of the creativity with some of these names? You remember when the Survivor Series was actually good, and you had like Sergeant Snipers, and you actually had a little bit of panache to these names, for heaven's sakes. This is just, it's black and gold. Are they going to put on shirts too, like they do on the main roster? Are we going to have like black and gold shirts?
They should, because we've mixed up babyface and heels here. You can't convince me LA Knight is a babyface.
He is not.
Like, I know that he's working on that side. I know he's feuding with somebody on the other side. But how is L.A. Knight a babyface?
Nah, we've seen this in wrestling for years.
Breaker is obviously a babyface.
Well,
but he's on the heel team.
That's
clearly a babyface. They bark at him. They chant his name. Yeah, they cheer for everything he does.
Just wait till the Royal Rumble when he comes out.
Babyface.
Just wait. And it'll be interesting to see who he throws out and who he gets thrown out by. And I know you say, Mike, how are you so sure that he's going to be in the Royal Rumble? Come on. He's going to be in the Royal Rumble. And if anything, Walter will be the one that chops him out of there. It won't be somebody that you even see every week. I'm already seeing into the future on this. How is Braun Breaker not going to be in the Royal Rumble? It'd be insane for him not to be.
Spartan says, I hope Knight leaves. He's too talented. Bro, that guy just signed. He's been there like less than a year, hasn't he?
And no offense to anybody with LA Knight. LA Knight went through that system once. He reimagined himself in was an Impact, and then I don't know if he did NWA for a while too. Like him just being back there, you know, to me, he's not being wasted at all. To me, like that's a great example of that's almost the best place for him. He can talk his ass off. Is he good in the ring? He's okay. It's just he's missing a component that puts him somewhere where his talking is. And I know people get tired of the catchphrases and all that, but look, if you threw some of that out, the guy is very good, and I'm sure he can mix up his game if he wanted to, but this is what they have him doing. This is what has worked for him, so I don't blame him for doing the shtick, but he can talk his ass off, and to me, WWE, he should be very happy where he's at. I'm not saying, well, you should be happy because he signed there, but like that to me is like the perfect place for LA Knight. Am I wrong? Do I think he's actually overshot his target by making it there a second time and being a feature piece?
I want to wish.
Am I wrong?
Well, hold on. I gotta make sure we get this in. But Clark Connor was supposed to be on the show today. Clark Connors, and he has COVID. And
he's supposed to be on our show.
He's supposed to be on this show today. Well,
and he can't do it because he has COVID.
It's a long story, but anyway, these
microphones are really good that you got.
We were trying to book him.
Picking up infectious diseases.
Anyway, let's get to the point, Mike. He's got COVID.
What is it?
So I want to wish the best to him. He is vaccinated. He hopes it will pass quickly, but we'll get him back here on the show soon. So actually, this has been a rough day for guests. First we lost Clark, and then we replaced him with Jervis, and then we lost Jervis. So I'm only hoping here that everything is okay with Gabriel Kidd for the next 4 minutes.
Really?
Then we'll have him on. Clark was supposed to be at Comic-Con this weekend, the LA Comic-Con, and obviously had to pull out of that. But they are having a meet and greet. There's a New Japan booth at Comic-Con, and there's a meet and greet Friday, December 3rd, and there will be a panel discussion with Jay White and Fred Rosser on Saturday, December 4th. And Gabriel Kidd not only taking the place of Clark on this show, but also at Comic-Con. So that is the update there.
Jay White and Fred Rosser sounds awesome as a panel and as a match.
Well, we'll get the match, I'm sure, at some point. Maybe the panel will turn into a match, or they'll shoot an angle for a match.
They should.
Also, very quickly, WWE's postponed the Tour of Canada, scheduled to take place in January 2022. 4-show tour set to include an episode of SmackDown, an episode of Raw, and 2 house shows. They have been rescheduled. These were all scheduled to take place January 21, 22, 23, and 24. The live Raw scheduled, they've actually rescheduled all of these already for October and September of next year.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was because of the Winter Olympics and hockey. Honestly, I thought, okay, they might be facing hockey competition on those nights, and I honestly thought that was it. And I know hockey doesn't begin until February, so I have no idea if this has got what this actually has to do with. But it's
I would think it was
hell of a move.
I would think it's so it's not ticket sales, as Dave noted, because the advances are good, and so I mean I think that it is something travel related, and you can probably all figure out what that would likely be. I'm not saying that's 100% why, but if the shows are booked, the advances are good, but you're not going to go to and from Canada, it seems self-explanatory to me.
Yeah, and I know people are probably saying right now, well, what has changed? Nothing, but something very well may change, so maybe they're just hedging their bets that way.
Actually, some stuff has changed.
Ooh.
Patrick here, by the way, says, no wonder they have problems selling tickets to WWE shows. A mid-level seat for a house show in Baltimore is $140.
Wait, what now?
A mid-level seat for a house show in Baltimore is $140. So if you were going to take your family, Mike, and you wanted to get mid-level seats, that would cost you $560, not counting parking and merch.
Well, first of all, Brian, I do nothing mid, okay? Number 2, I've been to the Baltimore Arena / Civic Center, whatever the hell they're calling it now, Royal Farms Arena, the Chicken Box, whatever. Man, it ain't worth it. It's just there's no way. $140 for that. I cannot believe that. That's got to be, what is the high? How is that? What is the low end? I mean, the low end's usually $15. A mid? I mean, how are they staggering these seats where you jump to that kind of number for a mid-range seat? That's insane.
Got to go to a break. Mike's out of here. We'll see him next week. Gabriel Kidd joins us after the break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Very happy today to be joined by Gabriel Kidd. We got a lot to talk about here today. Gabriel, how you doing?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
You know, we have a, I don't know if he's your friend or not, but I like to say mutual friend, because you guys work together. Filthy Tom Lawler, you're aware of him?
I'm aware of him. I don't speak to him too much. He's he's on a different team to me, but
he's an off-putting sort of fella, isn't he? And those giant ears, you know?
Say that again, sorry.
He's kind of an off-putting fella.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's not too kind, really, but a very good wrestler.
Well, the reason I bring this up is because we were having a discussion on the show, and we were talking about New Japan Strong, and we were talking about you, and he kept calling you Gabe Kidd. And for my whole lifetime, every time I've heard of you, it's been Gabriel Kidd. So can you clear up, what do you prefer?
That's a question. Well, you know, I pick Gabriel because I think it's the full version of my name and it's proper, and I think that's how I want to be presented, you know. But all my friends call me Gabe. The only person I know that calls me Gabriel is my grandma and my mom when she's angry at me. But, you know, I don't mind either.
Oh man. So technically, is it now? Should I be calling you Gabe Kidd?
No, you can call me Gabriel Kidd.
All
That's
right.
how I present myself to the world. So I'll take Gabriel. Well, you can call me whatever you want. I'm easy. I don't mind.
Sure. So what has been going on in life? I mean, there's been you've resurfaced here, and there's obviously been a pandemic, and kind of take us through the last 2 years of your life.
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy 2 years. So I joined New Japan Pro Wrestling and the LA Dojo in September 2019, and I went over to Japan for the Young Lions Cup. I didn't wrestle. I just supported the boys and started Young Lion duties. And then I came back to America, and I was at the LA Dojo for 3 months at the back end of 2019. And then 2020, Shibata-san wanted me to go to Japan to debut. So I was going to be there for 4 months and then go back home, see my family, and then move out to LA properly. But then, the pandemic happened. So I kind of just stayed in Japan from January 2020 to May this year.
So what is the status as far as New Japan Strong? I mean, you've got some various dates coming up. I mean, are you under contract to New Japan and largely going to be doing Strong tapings and then whatever else is happening in the meantime?
Yeah, so I don't think it's really been, announced officially, really. But I'm not, I've graduated the Young Lion system. I've had that conversation with Shibata-san, and I'm on my excursion in the United States now. This is because I wrestled on the UK scene for a bit and then went to Japan for a year and a half, and I've never wrestled in America until recently. So I'm on excursion in the States, and I'm doing some independent shows and New Japan Strong too, yeah.
One of the most recent matches I saw with you was with Zack Sabre Jr. I think it was in the New Japan Cup. And it's just a fantastic match. And the next match that I'm aware of you doing, apparently, is with Eddie Kingston, which is a completely different kind of match than the match that you had with Zack Sabre Jr. What are your thoughts on Eddie?
I love Eddie, to be honest, and I've said this publicly before, and, I'll say it 1,000 times over. And, what he's done right now, and just like the past year, because I had a conversation with him in 2019 in England, and he was thinking about stopping, and he had some stuff going on, and he was thinking about stopping wrestling. And I just said to him, I pulled him aside at that show, and I just said, please don't give up on this, because we need more people like you. And he's a real inspiration. I think he's inspired a generation of young wrestlers without even knowing, I feel. And I really look up to him. But when I'm standing in the ring and I'm looking at him, I'm not, we're not friends anymore. It's go time, and I've had 6 months off, and I'm not coming back just to slow down again. So
you are doing the show today, and originally, a long time ago, you're actually the third guest that was scheduled here for today because of various situations. And the first one was going to be Clark Connors, and he ended up getting COVID. And then, so you've replaced him here on the show today, and we're actually here to talk about what you're replacing him on this weekend, which is the ComicCon in LA. And I have read on the internet, and I want you to tell me if this is true, because if it's on the internet, it's usually not true. But I want to clarify this. Is it true that you were reading an issue of Fighting Spirit magazine when you were compelled to get into this business? Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
And it's weird because I've met Bryan after, and we've spoke about it, and because he did a piece on me a few years back, 4 years ago, on the One to Watch section, and I told him that story, and it's kind of funny how things come full circle,
Well, I'm really old. I'm 46 years old, so this new generation of guys like you, And I look up this stuff, and it's like, this guy was born the year I graduated high school. And then the Fighting Spirit thing was interesting because I wrote for Fighting Spirit magazine, like in the very beginning when that magazine began. So to see that, like, you were a kid reading Fighting Spirit magazine, which is what got you into the business, it's just, it blows my mind, and not always in the best way.
Oh, sorry, bro.
It's all right.
Yeah,
But I mean, you've gone.
I can't help being born.
You've
97.
gone. Yeah, from reading Fighting Spirit magazine to now you are signed with New Japan, and you're a Comic-Con booth coming up this weekend. And you know, we had another viewer here that says they remember you from where was it here? I first watched Gabriel Kidd on WCPW. Very happy for him. Like, do you ever sit and just think about how far you have come from reading that Fighting Spirit magazine?
Yeah, I do quite a lot actually. Like, especially in the past couple of months, I've kind of learned how to take a step back and be like, because when you're chasing something, you're just constantly thinking about the next thing, you know, and you're constantly like looking forward and trying to reach where you're trying to go. And, you know, it's real easy to get lost of what you're actually doing in like the present moment. But I've been very like, I was in South Carolina recently, and I took a step outside my hotel room in the morning, and I just kind of like took a breath of fresh air and was like, this is what I always wanted to do. You know, this is what I said to myself, you got to work hard for this. And now I'm, you know, living it. So I do that quite a lot.
I always like to ask people the question, I mean, when you were reading that Fighting Spirit magazine or whatever your early dreams of wrestling were, I mean, when was the first time that it hit you, like you showed up at a building and you saw the lineup, or, you know, the bell rang and you were looking across the ring from so-and-so? I mean, what was the first thing that really blew your mind in this business where you just could not believe that you actually were doing this?
So November 2016, I was scheduled to wrestle Doug Williams in my hometown on the pre-show of an iPay-per-view for WCPW, What Culture Pro Wrestling. And I was supposed to, which at the time for me was a really big match, you know. Doug was, he had just started picking up like bookings around this time, and I was really excited for it. And I got to the building, and someone had missed their flight, and the promoter comes up to me, and the guy who was running the whole thing was like, okay, your match has changed. And I was like, oh no, like I was really, you know, wanted to test myself with this one. And they were like, yeah, you're going on with Johnny Mundo instead.
Wow.
I was like, oh, damn.
That's the former John Morrison.
Yes. And that was in my hometown, you know, so all my friends were there, and I kind of came out and got this big reaction, and it was this, you know, it was about 1,500 people in there. And yeah, that's when I was like, oh, this is different to anything else I've done before, you know.
We had Hammerstone was on the show about a week or two ago, and he was talking about how, you know, it's been recently that he's been doing shows, and he can go to a building, and now he no longer feels like, my God, something could go terribly wrong, because he's been doing it long enough that now he feels comfortable that regardless of who the opponent is or what type of match, now he feels like, you know, I can get through this. When did you start feeling that way, in the sense that, you know, there's not that fear, oh my God, who am I going to be in the ring with? Am I going to be able to work with this person? When did you start feeling comfortable?
Honestly, I mean, I've always been pretty confident in my ability, especially the past few years, you know, really got into like self-belief and kind of really getting into a good mindset. But not until recently, you know, because I took 6 months off, and I was getting ready to come back, and I was, you know, there's always that battle in your mind, like, am I going to be there? Am I not going to be there? Like, but then I was like, no, I've done this for 10 years, you know. I just said to myself, I've done this for 10 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. I've done it 1,000 times. And for the past year and a half, I've done it at the top level, you know, in Japan with the best wrestlers in the world. So just kind of, you know, I feel I'm confident in my ability now, you know, but it almost feels like I'm starting again, in the sense of I've got that hunger that I had when I was first starting out, when I first got to New Japan. And it's almost that like 6 months has kind of given me a reset, you know, and now I'm just in a different mindset and I'm just ready to go. And yeah, I feel the most comfortable I've ever felt. And yeah, really looking forward to the future.
So, who in New Japan, as you look at the roster and who's available in America right now, I mean, is there anybody that you're particularly interested in getting in the ring with here soon?
I mean, you know, I'm always looking at my next opponent. I try not to look past my next opponent. I think that's, you know, the longer I've been in it, the more I've come to understand that. But I think it'd be silly, you know, not to, you know, go for the best, because I need to be in the ring with people who are better than me and people who have been where I want to be. And, you know, I think the first answer is always going to be Hiroshi Tanahashi, you know, the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling, inspired a generation of Japanese wrestlers and, you know, still innovating. And he was really good to me, my time in the dojo, but, you know, I've always been here to be at the top, like ever since I came to New Japan. And there's going to be a day when I step in the ring and Hiroshi Tanahashi is going to be looking at me in the eye, and I have to know that I have to beat him, you know. And I'm just, every day I think about this and I trained for moments like that. So, you know, that will happen one day in front of a big crowd in a big arena for big stakes. And I look forward to that day.
Very quickly here, if you look at the Tanahashis and the Okadas, I mean, these are names that are in the running when people talk about the greatest wrestler they've ever seen. Who is the greatest wrestler that you have ever seen?
That's a question. The greatest wrestler I've ever seen. I mean, there are so many components that go into it, but if I had to go off, you know, if you ask me that question right now, I think I'd have to say, you know, it's hard not to say Katsuyori Shibata, you know, because he essentially stopped at his peak. And, you know, even just recently, he had a 5-minute grappling exhibition with Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah.
And,
well, actually, hold that thought. We'll get into more of this after the break. Stand by, everybody. Observer Live. I have Gabriel Kidd joining us here today. The ComicCon coming up in L.A., and we've got a panel discussion coming up tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Jay White, Gabriel Kidd, and Fred Rosser are part of that panel. And then there is a meet and greet over the next 3 days. Tonight, 6 to 8 p.m., it'll be Gabriel. And Saturday from 1 to 3, Jay White. Sunday, 1 to 3 is Fred Rosser. So you can check that out at the LA Comic-Con. And want to make sure we get a chance to get some plugs in here today for your stuff, Gabriel. Some upcoming matches. You'll be doing all the New Japan Strong tapings. What else is coming up, and how can people find out more about you?
I got the Strong taping in Hollywood on the 9th of December, and on the 18th, I'll be in North Carolina for PWX. And yeah, just shout out to my team, LA Dojo, all my boys, and just 2022 is going to be a big year for the LA Dojo, and you know, I'll let our work speak for itself. But I'm on Twitter and Instagram, Gabriel Kidd _, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
There you go, at Gabriel Kidd _ on Twitter. So check that out, and best of luck this weekend. Have fun at the Comic-Con, and best of luck with all the future matches. Well, I do think it'll be a big year for the New Japan Dojo, because it was a big year last year in the middle of a pandemic. So next year should be even better. But thanks again, and of course, thanks for doing this on short notice here today. And thanks, everybody, for listening. We're out of time. We'll talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live.